All right. Hey there, and welcome to Data Driven Sim Racing. It's a segment where I take my two passions, which are sim racing and data analysis and business intelligence, and I put them together and I sim race for fun and also take the resulting data sets from sim racing and build Power BI reports from them. So today we're going to be doing that, and I will do a full walkthrough of exactly how I do so. It'll be three easy steps. The first step will be using an app such as Sim Racing Telemetry, which is what we have on screen, and using that to gather sim racing data from our sessions. Step two will be actually sim racing, which for this particular session, I will be at Spa. I'm testing two different setups, a standard out of the box setup and also a new setup from GoSetups that I purchased recently. And step three will be taking the resulting data from Sim Racing Telemetry and putting that into Power BI. Now, the results of step three, they look something like this, where we take race data, things like tire temperature, brake temperature, engine horsepower output, race position, brake pressure, all these fuel statistics and metrics, and we'll put them into Power BI so that we can get reports about our race or about our hot laps, whichever it is. This is a way that I can see whether or not my setups are working for me and whether or not they're actually helping or whether I'm getting progressively better or worse over time. So for ACC, we have this particular report, which I did on a prior stream, which shows things like position, again, temperatures, brake pressures. Then I did another one for Automobilista 2, which is another sim racing platform that I'm on. And here I was able to perform a few visual enhancements to the report. For example, putting a heat map on race position, and then I built a completely new page that has things like G-force on it. It has things like temperature per tire on it, and average things like average throttle by lap, brake temperature down here. Morse 314 says what are your control variables racing with different cars or different models each time. Well, my favorite car to race in Assetto Corsa Competizione is the Porsche 911 GT3R, and honestly, it's the only one that I've actually purchased setups for. The Porsche requires a particular driving style, which I actually learned the game with. And once you start driving the Porsche, some folks may disagree and some folks will agree, but once you start driving that car, every other car, because of the fact that the Porsche is rear engine and rear wheel drive, it has a completely different driving style, and it's actually difficult to go back to other mid engine or even front engine cars. So my control I always use is the stock setup that comes with the game that the game basically preloads for you. And so I'll run a couple of laps using that stock setup that comes with the game. Then I'll switch over to the setup that I've purchased from GoSetups.com, GoSetups.gg is the website, GoSetups.gg. And I'll do a couple laps there with that, and I'll compare the two to see what sort of things improved. Usually, if I'm honest, because I have a system that has a lot of force feedback, and I also have force feedback in a gaming pad that I have called the Next Level Racing HF8, I can actually feel the car improve. I was doing a prior session maybe about a week ago, maybe a couple of days ago, where I actually tested the two setups compared to each other back to back, and I did a couple laps at Zandvoort, which is a track in the Netherlands, and I felt the difference almost immediately. I had a lot more confidence in the car. I could push it a little bit further. But if you go back and watch that, you'll actually see that because I'm so much more confident, I was prone to making so many more mistakes. So it's really interesting how it works out. But as far as Power BI goes and how I use that for control, I can usually get what I will usually do is take a snapshot or take a bunch of telemetry data with the standard setup. Then I'll take it again with the purchase setup, and then I'll compare the two as well. So we're actually going to do that right now. All I have to do is, if you're wanting to replicate yourself this, what you can do is go to simracingtelemetry.com if you're on the PC and download it. You can download it right here on Steam. If you're on mobile, if you have a mobile setup, what you can actually do is go to the App Store or Google Play Store if you have an Android, and you can actually run your telemetry from there. Since I'm on PC, I prefer to just do everything I can on my PC, and that usually helps me out, because what you get at the end, for you data nerds out there, is something like this. Let's go ahead and open. What you get out here is a CSV, or a tab delimited CSV file. And this has snapshots of your race every 5 seconds, or your session. For example, with tonight's session, I'm actually going to do 2 hot lap sessions, one with and one without, and then a short, like 15-minute race to see whether or not the setup actually helps me out. And I'll record 3 different snapshots of data to see whether or not it's actually helping. So what we'll get is this CSV file, which I'll then import into PowerBI. And on the previous session I made this, if I have enough time, I will actually remake this and possibly get it looking a little bit better visually. But bare minimum, we're going to go ahead and just make a new version of this using our new data. So the steps to replicate are, you just open up Sim Racing Telemetry either on your PC or on your phone. You choose the game you want to record. For example, tonight we're recording Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is this one here. You can see I have a couple prior sessions at Zandvoort. Tonight it's going to be at Spa, so it's going to be a bit different. Hopefully I don't crash as much. I'm going to hit record new session and then just hit start. And now it's waiting for data. It's good to go. All I have to do is start my sim racing session. So we're going to make sure that crew chief is on.
Radio.
It's not happy. Let's try again.
Radio check.
Spotter, radio check.
There we are. Okay, so crew chief is up and running. I'll need it because crew chief tells me all sorts of cool stuff about my session, my times, whether or not I have someone beside me. So that's really important. They're a spotter as well. And then we're going to hop in to ACC. So what we're going to do first is a hot lap with the Porsche 911 GT3R. We're already recording our data in Sim Racing Telemetry. So let's switch over and see if we can get our camera set up. I did this in a prior session and it was glitching a bit, so I'm hoping today it's not and everything looks okay. Good. All right, so now we can go ahead and start. And we'll start our session. And once we get in there, we'll go ahead and make sure that we're running our standard setup. All right, so we're going to head into the setup area. And then we're going to look at the current setup and make sure that one's the factory one. Yes, it's the safe preset. That's the one we've been running from the beginning. And then if we hit load and save down at the bottom right corner, what we'll actually see is all of the setups that come from GoSetups.gg. So we're going to do that, but after we run our, let's say 3 or 4 laps with the standard setup. So I'm actually going to save the current setup as preset, so I can go back to it easily. And then we're going to switch to another setup. The S is for safe, and the E is for esports professional, which we're not going to touch because we're just not there yet. And then we have one wet setup as well, which we can use. So I can use either the qualifying for Q, or the R for race. And depending on what sort of setup I want, I'll probably end up switching to a qualifying setup. So Q1 or Q2. I think the 1 and 2 are just versions, the latest versions of setup. So we'll switch to those when we're ready. But for right now, we're just going to run a standard setup. All right. And let's hop in. And first lap around is just going to be for the warming up tires.
Is 37. The air temp is 30 Celsius.
Alright. Let's see what we can do here. We're going to take it kind of slow on our first lap out. Just build up some speed, build up some temperature in our tires. Nothing too aggressive just yet. I'm gonna lift a little bit here for Rouge and Radion. We're not running too aggressive just yet. And if you can see on the bottom right corner, our brakes are actually getting quite cold. So we're going to want to make sure that we keep them as hot as possible. I don't want to do anything too aggressive right now. Not on this out lap. Next lap we can have some fun, but not quite yet. And even so, the Porsche just wants to kill me. It has been quite a while since I've raced at Spa. I try to stay away from Spa as much as I can, even though it's probably, for a while, was just the track I knew best. But now, I don't really race at Spa too much. Try to start getting a little bit more aggressive as I get into sector 3 here. Okay. I think we're going to start getting aggressive here as we go into possibly a push lap, hopefully. Let's see if it works out for us. Okay, let's give it a shot.
We've just done 2:31.67.
Definitely not our best lap. That's going to be horrible. Oh man, it's just been a while. But we always have our excuse, right? We're just collecting data. Okay, we're going to slam on the brakes and get into second gear here in a bit. Hopefully the back doesn't come out on it. There it is. Oh no. Oh man. This car just does not inspire confidence, at least not with this setup. Maybe the GoSetups will change that quite a bit. But you get this sense that this car just wants to hurt you in some way. There was a time where I'd take that corner pretty much flat out, but now it's not that time. I think my best time around here is something like a mid 220s, which isn't even that good to start off with, if I'm honest. So we'll see how we do right now. With this car, I tried to do all my braking before I turn. Ooh, that's pretty terrible.
228.09, sector 3 times quick.
Sector 3 is the only time that's quick. Let's see if we can beat that lap. Our tires are a bit warmer, which is a good thing. And we take over Rouge flat out. We stayed within the lines there. Only just.
Sector 1 times okay.
That was a bit too much power. Gotta roll on the throttle here at the corner. That was a bit wide. And we are about 1 second ahead of our last lap. Still about a second to a second and a half away. That's pretty good. So about 1.3 seconds. .75 seconds. There's that 226.
226.43. Sector 3 times okay.
Alright, we're a little behind right now. Try to see if we can do a little bit of a cleaner Eau Rouge and Radion moment here. That's going to be a no. So we've got some catching up to do. And went in a little hot.
Sector 1 is 0.36. Off your best.
It looks like we are behind this lap. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot I can do to catch up here. See if there's anything we can pull off right now. I'm slowly gaining, but I think I'm a bit too far gone. Maybe we can roll in a little hot to this last corner here. And that's not going to work. Nope. Kept it between the lines because I won a valid lap, but that was pretty terrible. Alright, we're going to do one more lap, and then we will switch our setups.
227.62. You're currently 1.2 off your best.
1.2 off my... Oh, okay, that was probably not the lap I wanted. Well, since that lap is already invalidated, I don't think there's much sense in running through it. Other than to practice a little bit. So, we are going to head out and check out our data that we just got from here. So, I'll go ahead and return to garage just to make it a clean exit. And I'm going to go ahead and quit back to the menu just so everything terminates properly on the Sim Racing Telemetry. Although I think they already do. They do take care of that for you. But here's our proof, quote unquote, that our data is being collected properly. As your session goes on, you actually see these colors change a bit, and they each represent a data point that are being collected. But truth be told, I think there's like 100 different data points, depending on the game that you're on. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to stop this. And now we see our new session, Spa with the Porsche 911 GT3, and then today's date, which is the 29th. So we're going to go ahead, go back in. I'm going to take off my glove here. We'll go back into this session. It shows us what our best lap was. It shows some native charts that it already have, which are pretty cool. You can actually use these to check your PowerBI report and see if it's showing the correct representation. If not, if they don't match these, then you might have something incorrect in your data set that you need to toggle. And then we have a couple stats as well, max and average velocity, for example. So since that's done, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to hit this little share icon at the top right. And you can share this with, I guess, friends or anyone you want to share it with. But the option I'm choosing right now is called export to CSV. So we're going to let it do its thing there for a second. And then it's going to open the save dialog box where it's going to ask us where we want to save. So I'm going to go ahead and name this guy because I have a little naming convention that I already have going. So I'll name it ACC, which is the game that we're playing at Spa with the 911 GT3R hot lap. And we'll say standard setup. And today's date. You don't have to do this. If you can keep track of the files that you're producing on your own, that's well and good. My intention is to produce a lot of files, so I definitely need to keep track of them in some way, and that's why I'm using this naming convention. So I'll save that, and then I'll go right back to recording because we're going to jump back in and load our Go Racing setup. So we'll hit start. Then we'll head right back in to our session. We'll keep the hot lap. We'll keep all the conditions exactly the same. You can test your setups in the rain if you want. You can test them with different track temperatures. I'm actually going to be doing that in the race portion of my telemetry checks. The third session that I'm going to be running today, this is going to be the second now, which is another hot lap. The third session is a full race where it goes from I think mid-afternoon through the evening and into the morning, and all sorts of temperature changes happen in the meantime, and that's a lot of fun to look at. So I'm going to start my session. Make sure my wheel is tight. Okay. All right, and now we're going to go to setups. we're going to load a setup. And we have the standard preset one here, but the one I'm going to run is let's go with a qualifying. So the latest qualifying one. So we'll do a Q2. And then I have to remember that for our race, I need to load the R setup. Otherwise, I might run out of fuel. I think the qualifying setup is limited fuel. So I'll take a look at that. Fuel and strategy. Let's see how many liters it gives us. Fuel and tire. Where is the fuel here? Fuel to add 0 liters. How many do I start with? 2 liters, which is a small amount. And when I load the race setup, let's see how many it starts with. Same 2. That's really weird. Maybe I don't have fuel enabled. I could have sworn I just enabled it a few minutes ago, but we'll see, I guess. So let's load our qualifying setup back. Q2. And let's run a couple laps.
Green light, go, go, go.
And I'm sure I'm going to be able to tell a difference almost immediately. It's pretty crazy how it works. But you can feel the car just more planted, less sliding, less, just more stability overall. It's pretty fun to experience. If you haven't tried custom setups from a professional company, I would highly recommend it, regardless of the one you choose. Even if you maybe get a free setup somewhere, that's cool too. But now that I've experienced these, I really don't recommend sticking with the standard setup that comes with the game. Oh yeah, just no sliding at all. The car just feels like it's on rails. It's pretty crazy. This is my out lap, so I'm going to try to take it easy. But as a little experiment, I'm going to just see how close to my fastest lap I can get on my cruising lap here. And the fact that I'm like right behind it, that's something about this setup. But my brakes are a little cold there. Just gonna cruise a little bit. Well, that is interesting for sure. It's weird how the rear just went out like that. But it's also not weird because I'm in the Porsche. Wow, okay. This is a very different feeling from our standard setup. Oh man, I'm gonna have to get used to this one. When I did this at Zandvoort, it actually felt a lot better. And this one does feel a lot planted, but it seems like I might have to change my driving style a little bit.
See through locking going into who on?
Yeah, some locking. That sounds about right, Jim. Thank you. Alright, let's try to baby it through. I don't think this next lap I'll be able to be too aggressive. Unfortunately, I still have to get used to this setup, I guess. Try to get a little aggressive here, but not too much. I don't want to completely ruin this experiment either. Just gotta remember to roll on the throttle. does feel a lot better for sure. Is it good? I don't know. Probably not. And that's just not working for me. I don't know.
Track limits.
There's a lot to get used to here. Will I ever get a valid lap? Oh man, I don't know. Trying to not be so aggressive here. Mistake upshifting there. Just need a valid lap. Let's see if we can get a clean one in here. It just feels so much more planted through that corner. It's pretty great. Alright, so we have one corner down. There's like 19 to go. Gotta lift off a little bit here just to make sure I don't mess anything up. Alright, so we're gonna brake a little bit early this time. I'm gonna get a good second gear run here. No!
Sector one's quick.
Oh, no. Oh man, this is gonna be rough. I am just relearning this car. The good news is I just need one clean lap to be able to compare it to what my five other clean laps from the standard setup. And maybe that's a mistake, is sticking with the standard setups for so long that now it's all I can race with. And that's trash, trash, trash. No.
Look in your left front going into Huon.
Yep, thank you. We're gonna try. We're just gonna have to slow down a little bit. It's like I said earlier, these setups are just so good that they make me a little bit more confident than I should be. And as you can see, that leads to disaster. I have no idea how I'm gonna be able to manage a race. I'm just gonna have to stay midfield. Oh yeah, this is just not working. This is the kind of setup that wants you to be either on the brake or on the throttle. Anytime that I've tried to coast, it just slams the door. And with the Porsche, I tend to coast a lot. It's something that I've worked into my driving style with this car because it's rear engine. I just don't feel comfortable being on. Wow, man, that's just not working.
Watch the track limits, please, Andreas.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, because it's rear engine, I just don't feel comfortable not coasting while I'm turning. But this thing just wants to, it wants some sort of input, it seems, either brake or throttle. There's almost no in between. And some folks will tell you, like, yeah, that's by design. You either need to be on the throttle or on the brakes. There shouldn't be a in between, but I beg to differ on this particular car. I know that's a popular thing in like Formula One. I try to practice that as much as possible, but it's almost impossible to be either on the brake or on the throttle with this car. And I need to stay away from the curbs as well. They are not helping me. But yeah, I do feel like I can't be as aggressive as I really want to be with this car. Which is a shame because the setup is so fantastic that I just want to attack every corner. That's a no-go. Okay, we are going to try one more lap, in which hopefully I can keep it absolutely clean and just get a time down. Even if it's slower, you know, maybe that's... Data's still data. So maybe that is what I need. Let's give it a shot. Just a clean lap. I'm gonna try to stay cool during Eau Rouge and Rally on here. As I almost been it. Okay. It's not terrible, but I wish I could have stayed on the throttle a little bit more. Alright, here's the corner. Here's the one that always gets us. Brake early. And just stay away from the curves. Almost lost it. I had to cruise a little bit there. Just feels like the car has so much more, and I'm just having to drive tame for the sake of keeping it on the track, but I guess that's what I need to do. But the car just wants, it wants a lot more input than what I'm giving it. It wants more throttle, it wants more brake, it wants more turn-in, which is evident by the fact that my standard setup over there is moving away from me. If you can see the shadow, or the outline, I guess.
Front brakes are pretty hot now. Sector 2 is 0.6, slower than your best.
Yep. Slower. That's the key word. The setup is better, but I am slower with it. I think we'll go for one more lap if we can keep it together for this one. That was pretty terrible. We'll keep it together for one more.
Last line was at 226.61. You're now 0.18, slower than your best.
Okay, that was a slow exit, but we're staying competitive. Which is really a shame because at Zandvoort it was almost easy to beat my prior time to the point where by the end of the first lap, I was kind of in a "where have you been all my life" mood with the setups. But with this one, not so much. I just feel it getting away from me all the time. It's biting back so much. We are half a second up though. Having said that, I'll probably ruin the race, or ruin the session time. Like that. Away from the curbs. Okay. That movement was a bit too twitchy for my liking, but
Sector 2 is 0.25
stay on.
off your best.
okay. Alright, we are almost 1 second up. 0.75. I'll lift off a little bit here to play it safe. 0.61 seconds. Half a second. Cut this corner a little here. Cut it right here on the curve. And that is a full second ahead.
Lap time was 3:25.66. Sector 3 time
I'm
is
gonna
fast.
keep going here until I bin it. If I can get a faster lap, I will certainly take it. Okay. Already 0.25 seconds up, and that's a good thing. Let's go full throttle here. Okay, 0.35 up. 0.4 seconds up. Away from the curbs. Oh, that was a late turn. Still half a second up. Oh no. Spoke too soon. And that's a lap invalidated. Couldn't hold it together
You're
there.
outside of track limits there.
Alright, so I think we're going to return to the garage. And then we're just going to quit to kill our session completely. And we'll take a look at that data. Make sure it came through. I'm going to switch over to Sim Racing Telemetry, and there it is. I'm going to stop it. And our best lap was a 2:25.657. With every sector. Nope. Sector 2 was slower, which makes sense. I was taking it way easier in Sector 2 because I kept going off the track. So that's pretty cool to see here. And here's the very last lap. Well, the one before we went off the track was our fastest. So that's really cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit share here again. And then I'm going to export to CSV. Wait for it to load. And I'm going to just steal the name from this one here. And instead of standard setup, we're going to say it is GoSetup Q02. No, what was it, like S for safe, and then Q02 for qualifying. So we'll save that. And because I don't think I'm going to have a fantastic race, let's just see if we can get some of that data into Power BI right now. So what I'm going to do is open up Power BI Desktop. And usually I'll have to kill the actual game when I do this. My sim racing computer is not, it's okay, but it's not particularly powerful. So I'm going to do my best to keep the game on while I run this. But I'm going to open up a past report that we did for Zandvoort, and I'm just going to save that as a different version so that I can quickly see whether or not the stats that we were using came in just fine. So I'm going to save this as another report. And I'm just going to say it's, instead of Zandvoort, it's as Spa. And save that. And now we can see at the top right, the top left, that our title changed to Spa. So we know we're on the Spa version of this report, and we don't have to worry about like maybe overwriting the Zandvoort version of this report, which is that would not be a good thing. So what do we do first in this step? I guess we kind of skipped ahead to step 3, but this is step 3, which is getting all of that data from the CSV into Power BI and running an analysis on it. So what we're going to do here is, with the open report that we have, we can already see that there's a data set that belongs to Zandvoort. When I open this up, I see all of the fields that came with that data set. But more importantly, what I'm going to do is actually change it to point to the new files that we created. So to do that, I'm going to right click on the data set in this data pane, and I'm going to say edit query. Now, the main thing that I want to change is the actual source file, and that's over here on the right in the applied steps. I'm going to click on source, and I can see up here that it has the Zandvoort file. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that to be our new file that was just created. Now, I can do so by clicking on this gear icon here and browsing for a different file, or if I know the exact directory that the file is in, I can just edit it here. So I'm going to do that. And the setup that I want to load, let's load the hot lap setup for standard at Spa. So this is my directory of files that I showed earlier. I'm going to take the name of this file here, which is the standard setup, and I'm just going to copy it, and then I'll paste it right up here at the top, right after the folder name. I'm just going to paste it right here. Now, something that I'm seeing right now, and it's a little bit concerning, is the fact that Power BI interpreted the delimiter to be a space. Now, Sim Racing Telemetry did a great job in naming the columns that are included in these files, because as you can see, instead of spaces, they're actually using underscores. Some folks use underscores. Some folks just use what we call Pascal casing or proper casing, which is the first letter of each word is capitalized. And some folks use that. But Sim Racing Telemetry used underscores, which is fantastic. It's actually perfect. The issue I see is actually with Power BI, where it interpreted this file as being space delimited. And I think it's actually, well, I know for a fact that it's tab delimited. So I want to make sure that it's not misinterpreting anything. Oh, the delimiter is the tab. Okay. It looks like, I guess this invisible character here is just a tab rather than a space. So if you ever have a doubt because you see the space and you start to panic like I just did, all you have to do is just go to the gear icon next to the source, wait for it to come up, and then just make sure that the delimiter is tab. You always want to have a tab delimiter here. Not all the time, but at least with Sim Racing Telemetry's data, because all their files are tab delimited. Okay, So how do we verify that it accepted our new file? Where you can see here, the car ID is the Porsche, which it was last time because I exclusively raced the Porsche because I can't drive any other car. Well, as you can see, I can barely drive the Porsche either, but we can see that the track changed to Spa. That's a good thing. However, we have one more step here, and it is to change the name of the data set. So here, instead of ACC Zandvoort, which is the track we did last time, I'm going to switch this over to Spa. If I can spell Spa. Okay, everything else, including the car, is the same. The date does need to change to 12/29 instead of 12/24, which is when I last did this. So I'm going to hit enter there. And now it's named exactly how I want. It's showing the right data. I'm going to hit close and apply. And we're going to head back to our report. It's going to load the data model, and we're going to see all of our data is going to change, including our position. Now, why is everything so static? It seems like nothing came through, or my brake temperature, my track temperature stayed exactly the same. Yeah, it must have been that the track temperature just never changed. Now, what if we can get some additional data like tire temperature? Let's see if that fluctuated throughout our sessions. So we're going to go open a new page. And for me, I'm not going to waste too much time in formatting and all that good stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is just copy any one of these bar graphs, and I'm going to bring it over to the next page. That way, I have the formatting already done. All I have to do is switch the actual data points. So here, I'm going to try tire temperature, I guess at the core. That's the one we'll probably need to do. So you'll see here it has tire temp core 0, 1, 2, and 3. Those represent front left, front right, rear left, rear right. All 4 tires. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drag the core 1, or core 0, core 1, core 2, and core 3. Now, I don't want the counts, and that's what it seems to be defaulting to. I don't want the counts. I want, I actually want the sum or the average or maybe the maximum tire temperature. But here's the problem. Power BI thinks this value or these values for tire temperature are text values. And that's why when I right click on them, I can't get a sum or a min or a max or any aggregate out of these. So what do I do to change that? Well, I simply click on the actual value, and where it says data type text up here at the top left corner, I'm going to change that to decimal number. And it's going to ask me, hey, are you sure you want to do this? It'll probably break your data. And I'll say, don't worry about it. I'm an expert. And I'll click yes. And then I'll just, pray to the tire gods or pray to the data gods that I actually did something correctly. And sure enough, here's maximum now available. So I'm going to repeat that step and hopefully, yeah, there we go. Okay, 80 degrees. All right, let's try that. Now, let's do it again for 1. We're going to switch it to a decimal. Yes. And 2, we'll switch that to decimal. And 3, we'll switch that to a decimal. And what? Oh, okay. Everything still looks weird, but that's because we have to switch all of these to maximum. So I want to know my max values. Max, max, max. There we go. So now we're able to see all of our tire temperatures. And I'll rename these so the title becomes a little bit cleaner. So I'll say max tire temp 1. Oh no, that's actually 0, right? So we want to make sure we keep that formatting that Sim Racing Telemetry set us. Now, the issue is I don't know which one is front left, front right, rear left, and rear right. I have to ask the folks at Sim Racing Telemetry. So until I do that, I'm just going to name them 0, 1, 2, 3. There we go. So now we have max tire temp 0, 1, 2, and 3. And we can see that on average, or throughout most of my laps, my tire temperature was around 81 to 84 degrees Celsius. So what about our brake temperature? All I'm going to do is just copy and paste the same exact graph, and then we'll switch this to brake. If I can spell brake, we just search for it up at the top. Since this has 160 something columns, I'm very happy that it has that many, but I also can't be bothered to go looking for them. So I'll just type it in right here at the top. Here we have brake temp 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to remove everything except one value just so it holds its formatting. Sometimes when you remove everything, the formatting goes away, and that's really annoying. So I held 1, then I'm going to insert 0, and now I can clear out the tire temperature because I'm just going to be doing brake temperatures here. So brake temp 2, 3, and 4. Now, again, same issue. I'm going to go ahead and switch these to decimal numbers. So there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And there's 4, which is actually 3 because we started with 0. So now I should be able to switch them over to max again. Here it is, max, 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 and max. Brake temperature, that sounds about right. It's a lot hotter here. So this is still Celsius, but it's a lot hotter for the brakes than it is for the tires. So we have brakes and tires. What else did we put in our other report? Because I want to rebuild that. We have brake and tire, and then G-force and average throttle. So let's try to see if we can find G-force. G-force. Okay, so again, we're going to just copy one of the visuals over from the last page. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here, folks. And another thing I need to note, a very common mistake that folks make in the business intelligence world, in the data analysis world, is they try to do all these fancy visuals, word clouds and little people walking around and stuff that moves on its own. If you're reading this type of data, if you're like a race strategist, you need to interpret the data as quickly as possible and with very small margins of error, very little room for interpretation. It's okay to reuse the same exact visual if it works. Your job in business intelligence is to portray and allow the data to be seen how it really is, and not in a fantastic and sexy manner that'll really impress some folks, but the people who are actually using the data, it'll just confuse. You don't want that. If something works for you, if it works for your customer, if it works for the person who's reading the report, don't change it. Don't change it for the sake of changing it, just to be cool and hip, because that's what the new kids are doing. Just stick with what you know, stick with what reads the best to the viewer, and you'll be in a much better position than, using something that's super cool but very hard to interpret on the fly. So let's try G-force now. We have the race position. We don't need that because we were both first and last, and it was a qualifying session or a hot lap session. So we'll do X and Y. And again, it's giving us count. Everything's a count. Well, no, we got to switch that to decimal numbers. And this one too, we'll switch this to decimal numbers. And while we're at it, we should switch Z as well. Okay. So now that we have them as decimals, instead of the count, which is counting how many values there were, chances are it's however many data points there were. And we don't need that. What we need is the maximum G-force. And then we'll say maximum G-force here as well. So we can see, actually it should be X. We should also bring in the minimum. Let's try bringing in the minimum G-force of X. So minimum G-force X. Yep, and minimum G-force Y. Now, I'll need to do a little bit of reading as to what this is actually interpreting. I think minimum is left. How much left hand G-force there is, or G-force towards the left, while maximum G-force is towards the right. But I have to get some clarity from Sim Racing Telemetry. Regardless, it looks like it's very interesting data. 2.7 Gs at 1 point, 2.4. I'll have to see which corner that was. Look, 3.4 Gs. That's some pretty cool stuff. I'm assuming that's somewhere around Eau Rouge. Can't really tell, but I'm assuming that's somewhere around Eau Rouge. I will be able to tell once I dive in a little bit more and get some positioning markers. The folks at Sim Racing Telemetry, they include world position, which I should be able to use to determine where I was on the track at the point that each measurement was taken. So that's pretty cool. So we have a few things. Let's try to get into average throttle just to complete the report. And I'll go ahead and switch over to the browser view so that you can actually see the data there. And let's try to get in the throttle. Average throttle percentage is what I want to do. So we'll look for throttle. There it is. We'll remove everything else. We'll hit throttle here and then change the data type to decimal. And then instead of counting, we'll just say average. So this isn't normally what I want. I actually want the percentage of throttle, which this looks like it's a percent, right? Average throttle is 69%, 77%, 78%. So let's switch this value. Instead of decimals, let's switch it to be percent. We can keep it as a decimal here, but if we just hit this percent sign, there we have average throttle percentage. That's pretty cool. And then we'll see a trend line. Every single time you see a trend line for how your throttle, in this case, my average throttle was progressing throughout the laps, and it seems to be getting less and less and less with each lap. And again, this is the standard setup. I'm curious to compare this data with the GoSetups setup, where technically I was driving a little bit harder, but just driving worse overall. So we're going to be a little bit lazy. And again, lazy is pretty good. When you have something that works, don't really change it. We're going to copy all of these visuals up here, which are just for kind of style. Although this one here is to filter on valid laps only. And then we're just going to paste them right over here. I'm not going to sync them because I want each page to determine what it does individually. So I'm going to hit don't sync. And now I should be able to change the values based on whether or not I'm looking at valid laps. So the only thing I would change further from this is I would change these to Celsius, or sorry, to Fahrenheit. because some folks may have trouble reading Celsius and they want to easily switch from one to the other. Like I did earlier here for this track temp, this is in Celsius. And then if I click on Imperial, I can see it in Fahrenheit. And as a bonus, fuel in liters switch to fuel in gallons. So that's pretty cool. We can do the same exact thing here. I'm not going to because I want to get on with my race, but that is something you'd be able to do. And if our race doesn't go too well, we'll probably have a little bit more time and I will be able to do that instead. So for now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm in a place where I feel comfortable with the data. So this is, I'm going to name this one temperatures. Well, we'll name it temps and forces. That's the page that we're going to mail. And the reality is this data set has so much data in it that you can probably make about 10 to 15 pages of data, especially during a race. I mean, this has weather angle, it has RPMs, vibrations, turbo pressure, I'm assuming PSI that you're pushing, the velocity, water temperature, wheel slip. I mean, there's just so much data that's collected here. It's a lot of data to show in these reports. Something I'm going to probably take a closer look at is, let's see if I can find it, damage. This damage here, anything that says damage, I'm gonna probably make a page on damage report. Maybe that's a good name for the page, is damage report, where I can get a feel for how much damage occurred during the course of a race and see what sort of things I can do to prevent it. But for now, I like the state of this report that it's in right now. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then I'm actually going to publish it right out to my workspace in Power BI. What does publishing do for you? Well, publishing allows you to share this report with others, and it allows you to see the report on mobile devices such as your phone, such as browsers, and such as iPads and tablets. So if you want to put your cool new metrics on a TV screen somewhere, you can do so by publishing it to Power BI. So I'm going to go ahead and publish it right here to my workspace. I'm going to hit select. And when it's done, it usually gives you a link to the report itself. So you can just pop the link open and it'll show you your report. Here's the link right here. And there we are. That's step 3 completed. Obviously, you can add as much stuff as you want, as many metrics as you want, and they'll show up as individual pages. As you can see, this is the page that we just created together. That shows as a new page while my summary stays intact. The cool thing about Power BI as well is you can actually import as many data sets as you want. Well, there is a limit, but it's not one that you'll run into. It's not one that I've run into professionally, but usually that limit's about 1 gigabyte of data within a report. And so you'll be able to create as many pages as you want, each one representing a different session, a different race. So if you want to have one report per weekend, for example, you can do that. You can have all your practice sessions, all your qualifying sessions, and all your race sessions all within one contained report so that folks can just switch back and forth very quickly. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's hop back in. Let's do a race. I'm going to switch. I know it sounds kind of silly, but I'm going to go ahead and switch my setup to be the race setup instead of the qualifying setup and see if that helps us out. Probably won't. And just as I'm getting used to this setup, I'm going to do all sorts of craziness and switch it up. But no, you know what? I'll play it safe. I'll just keep the setup that I have right now, which is the qualifying setup, and see if it gets me through the race. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start here. And it started recording. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our game and we'll start a session. We'll call this a quick race. Let's switch it from, no, we can do 15. We'll do 15 minutes, 48 times multiplier, and we're starting at position 11. Hopefully we can stay somewhere around there, because the reality is I'm not sure I can even stay there considering it's a brand new setup to me, and I'm honestly not doing too well. So I'm going to try to keep it conservative, try to just finish the race. That's our goal, is to finish the race. Let's get the gloves on. I don't want to mess up my wheel. Now let's hop in. Actually, let me make sure we're tight there. And we'll start. Oh, actually, let's check our setup.
15 minutes.
Let's make sure we have the right setup on. I think we were using Q02. Hopefully that gives us enough fuel. We'll see.
The track temp is 37. The air temp is 30 Celsius.
Did I not load it? There, it's loaded. And let's go back. And let's give it our best. I think we have a formation lap.
You'll need to get on with this. P11.
Yeah, I think we do. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen the whole formation lap to go, but maybe it gives us time to warm up our tires, get
Track temp is 39. The air
a
temp
feel
is
for the car.
31 Celsius.
Get some heat in there, as these guys in front of us are doing, it seems. Something that I find for at least brake temperature and some tire temperature is just accelerate in a straight line and brake very hard in a straight line. That seems to also build some temperature quite quickly. That I got from my motorcycle days, where it was a common misconception that kind of weaving your motorcycle was the best way to get heat in the tires. And if you do a little bit of research, I mean, some folks may not agree because it doesn't look as cool, but one of the best ways to get heat into your motorcycle tires is to just drive fast in a straight line and brake very hard. Obviously not enough to go up on one wheel, but the friction that's created on the tire from the forces actually expands and contracts the tire quite a bit, and that actually helps build heat much better and much safer than doing all this weaving on your motorcycle, which could result in you slipping. So, for motorcycle enthusiasts, that is a hot tip. Now, you won't look as cool doing it, and hopefully you don't end up or go up on one wheel, but it is a much safer way than weaving in and out or back and forth. Alright, we are halfway through our formation lap here, and here's me already losing some control because I hit the throttle way too hard. Okay, we have a nice Ferrari in front of us. It also looks like an M4 in front of them. Lamborghini, McLaren. I think I spotted an AMG. No, there's two Lamborghinis, a McLaren, the M4, and the Ferrari. I'm assuming there's a couple. Oh, there's a black and red Mercedes, or black, white, and red Mercedes all the way up there. And like P7 or so. Hopefully we can get there, but really the goal is just to finish the race. That's all I want to do today, is just finish the race. So hopefully we can do that without, crashing. Okay, we are in Sector 3. And we are going to do our best to get a good start. This will be a rolling start, as most of my races are. I don't really like doing standard starts. The only game I'll do that in is F1 games. And are we gonna line up soon? Yes, I believe so. Everyone's slowing down. Okay. It looks like it's about time. Suspense is terrible. Spa is just such a long track that the formation lap is just like, let's start racing already. But then as soon as the race starts and everyone's passing me, I get
Follow
back
car
down.
number 94. The right
At least
car.
with the formation lap, I hold my position well. Alright, we are in formation. And let's go down to first gear. We'll need that for this corner. And hopefully we don't get boxed in here. Sometimes these cars love to box folks in. Okay, we are rolling. And I suspect
All right, Andreas.
we're gonna
You
start
ready?
very
Watch
soon.
for the lights.
Oh, it's after the first corner. I forget how GT3 races start at Spa. It's after turn 1, going down into Eau Rouge, or halfway to Eau Rouge. That's when the race starts. And that's so frustrating. Where's that Ferrari? There it is. Oh, are we gonna get a bad start? We might. And let's
Go for it.
And we're gonna back out here. We don't want to end up in the bin. Can we get some positions here? I don't think so. Are we really going through right into this turn? No way. That's just a bad idea.
Hold your line. Hold your line.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Hold your line. Clear left.
I almost went off the track there. Alright, we're gonna try to block into this corner.
Okay, Andreas.
I just
Decent
can't
start.
be as
Build some
aggressive as I
momentum.
usually am. For fear of losing control. I'm trying to be a little aggressive into this corner
Right
here.
side. Hold your line. Clear right.
Okay, we have gained a position and that's not bad. Thank you, new setup. We're gonna be able to gain another.
Left side.
It looks like
Still
we
there.
are.
Still there.
Oh, we're still there, so no, we haven't gained it
Hold
yet.
your line. Clear left.
And did we hold? We sure did. Alright, 2 positions gained, that's not bad. Let's see if we can slipstream our way into 8. We sure can.
On your right. Clear right.
Let's lift off a little bit.
Air and track temps are falling. Air temp is now 24.
All
Track
right, and
temperature
we
is
are
now
not going to attempt
24
to
Celsius.
slide our way into 7th or 6th here. We're just going to cruise behind these folks, let them fight a little bit, and see if we can reap some of the benefits. Plus, it helps our safety rating,
Place.
which, if I'm honest, is pretty poor at the moment. We had some bad run-ins at Zandvoort, which caused our safety rating to go through the floor. And these folks always back off at Spa, so I'm going to try my best to do the same. Oh, that was a mistake. Okay, no advantage gained though.
We've gone out of track limits. Keep it between the lines.
Can we squeeze in? I think we can. No, that's too aggressive. Let's just chill. Just gonna chill behind these folks. See if they do enough fighting for us to be able to...
We're running on fumes, mate. Come into the pits at the end of this lap.
Oh no!
Box this lap.
Qualifying fuel. I wasn't supposed to pit. I wasn't supposed to pit. That's my race ruined. Oh no. This is supposed to be a non-pit race. For anyone who is interested in knowing why I'm so surprised that I just got that message. This race requires no pit. I used a qualifying setup for a race because I did not see my fuel decreasing in my report, which told me that I hadn't turned fuel on. But maybe I just hadn't turned it on for that session.
Track temps decreasing. Temperature is now 22. Track temp is now 22 Celsius. Very little fuel left. In this lap.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand. I may as well do that. Basically, I may as well do that. What just happened?
Yellow flag, stay sharp.
I'm just so confused as to how after one lap I have
Okay, Andreas.
no
you've
fuel.
Got half your fuel left.
Wait. Okay. So is it very little fuel or is it half my fuel?
You're locking your front going into the chicane. Look out for the pit speed limit.
Wait. What just happened?
You've got 10 minutes left. 10 minutes to go.
Do I have half my fuel or do I have... Oh no. What a terrible race. I feel like I shouldn't even finish this. But I'll finish it just for... Wow. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. What just happened? There's my box. So I'll go ahead and box, but something tells me I had enough fuel to finish this race. And something's just... Oh, come on. What is happening? Let's check our 6% fuel. We can see 6% fuel right here. So it's very true. I didn't have enough fuel. But we're using 4 liters per lap. I'm never gonna finish this race. I'm gonna do like 2 laps. And I still have 6% fuel.
The pit exit's clear.
What is happening? What is happening? I'm gonna get blue flagged all over the place. I didn't refuel either. I think this race just went pretty terribly. I don't know what's going on. But I'm pretty sure I'm about to run out of fuel. And we're halfway into the race, so that's convenient. You know, convenient time to run out of fuel is halfway in the race. Oh, this will be very fun telemetry to see. For sure. For sure. Low fuel alarm. Okay, I'm gonna stick with this just because I want to get some telemetry on how you run out of fuel. We have 4 liters. But we're just gonna go flat out. We're gonna go flat out because I need to see what happens. It'll be some interesting data at the very least. Once we finish this, we're gonna load the data back in because I'm desperate to see what everything looks like, and then that'll be the end. That'll be step 3 done. Even though we already did step 3, we'll get to see it one more time. At least loading the data. I won't make any modifications or anything like that. But we will see what race data looks like versus just hot laps or qualifying.
You've used half your fuel.
Thanks for that. I don't know who to trust anymore. Half my fuel, or is it half my fuel, or is it low fuel? Or maybe it's that like they fitted a tiny capsule as my petrol tank. And that's what I'm working with right now. But we just see the fuel level was just dropping. Oh, thanks, yeah. I love how he's telling me like all the fastest lap that everyone else is doing. Yeah, I know.
What about track limits? 2 litres remaining.
2%. 2% fuel. You can see it right here. We're just gonna have some fun until it runs out and see how far we get. But I am fairly certain that that's what happens when you run a qualifying setup during a race. Is you get like qualifying levels of fuel.
We're halfway through. Should be about 0 minutes of fuel remaining.
0 minutes of fuel remaining. Thank you. But we will run out of fuel. Here it is. Maybe can we get like to the end before we run out of fuel? New challenge. Get to the end of the lap, but also drive flat out. .46, .41. We are about to run out right here on this straight. I'm going to see if I can go flat out and then coast. Here we go.
Fuel left.
And we're out of fuel. We are out of fuel. Can we coast? Can we coast? I don't want to, like... we're doing some engine braking right now. I'm at full throttle. And coasting. 60 kilometers an hour. 55. This is a slight uphill. Oh, and now I'm like super in the way. I'm a danger to everyone else. Oh no. Okay, I'm trying to stay off the line. And there's my engine cranking.
Yellow flag.
Okay, I'm going
Blue
to
flag.
safely pull over here. I don't want to be in the way. And there's everyone passing. And now we're rolling backwards. So that's the end of our race, I think. Because I'm out of fuel. And there's no way. Yeah, there's me trying to crank the engine and nothing. Okay, that was super fun and super unfortunate, but it'll make for some great data. I'm sure. Oh, maybe I should hold the brake down. Okay, return to garage. Confirm. And first of all, priorities. I need to save that replay. SQL dev DBA being an idiot .mp4 will be the name. Yeah, I may as well quit. Things did not go very well. So I'm going to, man, I need to see the whole setup, but I'll take a look at that later. Okay, I'll just go ahead and quit here. And let's see what that data looks like, because I'm interested to see what my fuel levels are like. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Power BI, and when we're actually gonna go to Sim Racing Telemetry first. So here's some data here. I'm gonna hit stop, just so it's done collecting data. Looks like I did 3 laps. There must be lots of cool information here. See, the charts, where you were on the track, all your throttle. So please, please, please use this to check whether or not your reports are correct. You have the data. Sim Racing Telemetry's got some great reports for you. You can definitely use these to see whether or not your data is correct within Power BI. I recommend it. I highly do. Okay. So here's our data. We're going to export that. And then we're going to say this is a, where are we? Spa. GoSetup Q02. This is not a hot lap. This was a race out of fuel. That's what we're going to name this. Export it successfully. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our Power BI report. I'm going to save this as setup analysis race no, or we'll just name it out of fuel again. And we'll hit save. And one of the things I want to do as well is change this race position so that it's a heat map. And I'll show you how to do that as soon as we import our race data. So what I'm going to do is click on the far right. We can see that our data source is not the race. That's very weird. I must have misnamed that earlier. But the one we really want is the latest one. Race out of fuel, this one. We're going to go to source. And this time we're just going to find the actual data. So we're going to hit browse. And not there. We're going to rename this file using the new name. .csv at the end. So it picks it up. And we're going to hit OK. And now we should be able to see some changes in the data. If you really look, you'll be able to see some. But what I'm going to do is just make sure that this is called race out of fuel. You don't have to do all this stuff. You don't have to change all these names. For me, I just find it a lot more convenient. Okay, let's see if this changes to all sorts of different race positions. Yes, there we go. Here we go. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to change this to where green, whatever position, the lower it is, the better it is, and red for bad. So green for good, red for bad. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to right click on race position, and I'm going to click conditional formatting and background color. Then I'm going to say I want to add a middle color that represents somewhere in between good and bad. My lowest value is going to be red. No, my lowest value is actually going to be green. So we're going to look for more colors. We're going to focus on green and then choose like a light-ish green somewhere around there. That we have our green, our yellow stays yellow, and our high values, meaning further back in the grid, we want those to be red. Let's see if that works. And it sure does. Green for good, red for bad. Around this time is when I had to pit. So let's see if there's any label around the pit. Pit status. Is there a pit status here? Yes. Okay. So we can see pit status is unique. And we're going to say pit status is either a yes or a no. So we're going to click on pit status being yes or no. And or actually 1 and 0 that indicates yes or no. We're going to change that to whole number and click yes. And there it goes. Now it changes. And then I'm going to click for pit status. I'm going to right click on pit status and change that to maximum, meaning it should tell us which laps we pitted on right here. So if I say pit lap, if I rename that to pit lap, I should be able to see, oh, I messed up there a little bit. I should be able to see, no, still, okay, that on laps 1 and 2, which might be really laps 2 and 3. Nope, they're laps 1 and 2. I did pit from laps 1 to 2. And so if you have like a 20 lap race with like 3 pits, you should be able to see the laps where you were pitting. And that's always really cool. And then we can see our temps. Our temperatures looked really, really interesting for lap 1. And then suddenly they just died in lap 2 because I was trying to take it easy everywhere. We can see all the throttle. 71% was the highest somehow. Oh, it looks like this is just inverted. See how this is like a smaller number, but it's at the top? We want to switch that to be inverted. So what we're going to do is click on the format visual here. And we're going to go to y-axis and invert range. Now we see a higher value for throttle percentages, and that's good. Is it the same here? Yes, we want to do the same thing here. Invert range. That must have been from the one I copied in the previous page. What we want are higher temperature, higher G-forces. We always want to show those as higher up in the y-axis. But the one we kind of stole this from was formatted in such a way. Yeah, I think we stole it from race position, which the inverse is true. The lower your number, the better you are. So I wanted to show that here with this graph. It's just I borrowed the wrong graph from my other page. So we fixed all this stuff, and that's good. We have seen that we just ran out of fuel in lap 3. So I can tell that even with a pit stop, I just run out of fuel 3 laps in. So I'm definitely using the wrong setup. It's a qualifying setup meant to only do 3 or 4 laps, and then you're supposed to head back in. The reason so little fuel is used is because they want to keep the car as light as possible for qualifying, so you set a good time. But for races, you obviously want more fuel, enough to last you the whole race. So I will change that, and I will try another race during another session. But for now, I think we are done with this report. We got our 3 race laps in, even though 2 of them were quite a shambles and we only got 1 good lap in. I'm willing to bet that with a strong setup like I had and more fuel, I probably could have worked my way up to 6th or 5th. Definitely not in the top 3, definitely not a podium, but I'm pretty confident that I'd be able to work my way up into 5th or 6th. So I'm going to give that a shot at a later date, or maybe later today. But we're going to go ahead and publish this report as a brand new report. And we'll be able to compare it with our hot lap sessions as well. Okay, so it is publishing. Here we are. Now we can see it online if we click here, and that is step 3 done. We now have a report. We have the grid that shows us which lap we pitted on, the max gear, minimum gear for each lap, whether or not the lap was valid in all cases, yes, and what position we were. We have the fuel and temperature. We have in metric as well. We have brake pressure, race position by lap. You can see that from lap 1 to lap 2, I went from 8th to 24th. That is super cool. And then in our temperatures page, we have our tire temperatures up here and our brake temperatures here. So that's really cool to see too. And the average throttle per lap and the G forces per lap. So just a very quick example of some of the stuff that you can do with the data from Sim Racing Telemetry in Power BI. And hopefully this lets you get a good start so you can take it from here. I just hope you don't run out of fuel like I did, and it'll probably make from some really, really interesting data. So thank you so much for joining me on this session of data-driven sim racing. I will be back with more adventures and hopefully a lot more fuel as well. Thanks for sticking around. For those of you who did, Morse 314, thanks for the question, for the context on the data there. And I will see you next time. Bye.